Have you ever wondered why, despite all your efforts, your reality remains unchanged? The answer may lie in an inner principle that has never been revealed to you in its full operational capacity. Fire, air, water, earth. The ancient initiates did not consider these elements as mere physical components, but as active forces that shape the mind, the body, the emotions, and the ability to act in the world. There is, however, a deeper arcane. Before the elemental quadripartition, there existed the primordial unity, the monad. This original principle, silent and undivided, represents the matrix from which all polarities, cycles, and manifestations of reality spring. When the monad is activated, it generates the two primary forces of internal alchemy, the solar impulse of action and the lunar receptivity of intuition. From this dynamic polarity, the four elements are born, and from their harmonious alignment emerges the quintessence, that higher vibratory field where reality is molded before it manifests. This is the core of true alchemical transmutation. Only those who learn to consciously work with these inner forces can permanently transform their external experience. The essential question is, are you ready to rediscover this operational knowledge? If these words have ignited a spark of recognition in you, that like will not be a simple social gesture, but a seal of participation in this initiatory journey. Your click will represent the first conscious activation, the signal that you recognize this truth when it presents itself to you. Click now, and together we will begin this journey beyond the veils of appearance. Ether is the invisible and imperishable substance that permeates the universe. It is the spirit that animates matter, the link between heaven and earth. In inner alchemy, there comes a point where the integration of sun and moon, of doing and feeling, of action and listening generates something entirely new. It is no longer just an exchange between opposites, but the birth of a triple force that supports true transformation. This triad is composed of three alchemical principles that do not belong only to old books. They live within you. They are called salt, sulfur, and mercury. These three forces are not chemicals in the modern sense. They are living symbols representing the three pillars of the human experience: body, spirit, and soul. Salt is the body, the matter, the foundation upon which everything is structured. It gives form, stability, and continuity to your existence. But too much of it hardens. Too little of it makes you lose your way. It is what roots your ideas in the real world, but it is also what can keep you stuck in old habits and rigidities. Sulfur is the spirit. It is the energy that drives you, the fire of will, the desire to create, change, move. It is the principle of action, but without direction it consumes you from within. It turns into anger, anxiety, excess, and if it is missing, life dies. Mercury is the soul, the bridge between the two. It is what moves, flows, adapts. It connects the fixed to the volatile. It is your sensitivity, your intuition, your ability to transit between extremes without losing yourself. Where salt fixes and sulfur ignites, mercury balances, softens, and transforms. These three powers act within you at every moment, even if you do not realize it. And everything you feel, experience, and attract is directly connected to the state of these three principles. When they are in harmony, you feel clarity, presence, and creative power. When they are out of balance, you feel confusion, exhaustion, emotional blockages, and even illness. True alchemy begins when you understand that these principles are not external. They are internal forces that shape your awareness and your reality. When the body becomes ill, it may be the salt crying for attention. When there is too much drive and stress, the sulfur is directionless. When confusion, apathy, or emptiness reign, Mercury has lost its flow. But the most important thing is that none of them act alone. They form an interdependent system, a circuit. Salt needs the heat of sulfur to activate. Sulfur needs the fluidity of mercury to not burn out. And mercury needs salt to not get lost. It is a dance, and when you learn to listen to this movement, you begin to transform what you experience inside and out. It is at this point of internal balance that something even more essential is born. The four elements, they do not come from outside. They are the direct result of the living fusion of salt, sulfur, and mercury within you. They are the elemental expression of your soul in the world, and it all begins with the first fire. Fire, the force that ignites the will. We are not talking about physical heat, flames, or fires that the wind puts out. We are talking about a living primordial force that pulses within you, an invisible presence that warms your thoughts, pushes your dreams forward, and burns silently whenever you feel the call of something greater than yourself. Fire is not just a spiritual image, it is an active symbol of your will in motion. It is the spark that gets you out of bed with purpose. It is the sudden idea that strikes your mind like lightning and shows you a direction you had not considered. It is the thrill that runs through you when you realize you are about to make a decision that could change everything. Fire is action in its purest form. It is creation before form. It is raw, pulsating energy that manifests as momentum, inspiration, or even rebellion. Yes, because fire screams, it breaks, it destroys. It lives in the region of the head, but not as logical thought. It vibrates in intuition, in the inner vision that sees beyond the visible. This is why many mystics spoke of fire as a flash of light, a flash of awareness that reveals what was hidden. Fire illuminates what is in the shadows. Unmasking what was hidden, fire demands movement, it demands change, it demands courage. Because once you have seen, you can no longer pretend not to see. But fire, like every alchemical force, has two paths. When it is well channeled, it is the fuel of true will. It becomes vision, purpose, clear direction. It is the fire that transforms ideas into projects, dreams into reality, intentions into action. This fire lifts you up even when everything around seems to be trying to knock you down. It burns without consuming you. It warms without burning you. It is the fire of awakened consciousness, which knows what it wants and why it wants it. But when that fire has no container, when it is left too free, without direction, it devours. It becomes anxiety, haste, irritation, impulsiveness. It is like a mind on fire, burning thoughts at every moment, unable to find peace. Like an uncontrolled passion that starts with enthusiasm but ends in ashes because it has no roots, no structure. Fire can both create and destroy. It can heal you or make you sick. It all depends on the inner state of the one who carries it. In the language of the soul, fire is the beginning. It is the divine spark that reminds you that there is something beyond what the eyes can see. But it cannot sustain itself. It needs fuel, it needs direction. And above all, it needs room to breathe. Even the purest fire goes out without air. And here comes the next question. What happens when this inner fire, this burning will that lives in your awareness, meets the air of the rational mind? Do they feed each other or cancel each other out? Do they cooperate or conflict? What is born when the creative impulse meets analytical thought? And it is at this precise moment that the fire, so vibrant and creative, meets the element that can amplify or extinguish it: air. But not just any air. We are talking about the invisible substance that flows through the mind. The field where ideas are born, collide, contradict each other, and take shape. Air, the mind that sculpts reality. Air is the element of rationality, but it is not limited to a sterile logic. It is movement, flexibility, lightness. It is what blows between certainties and raises doubts that no one wants to face. And that is precisely why it holds such great power. In the symbolic language of the soul, air is the first mirror of fire. While fire acts on impulse, air observes, weighs, measures. As if to say, stop, think before you act, but don't be fooled. Air is not a brake. It is a subtle force that sharpens the direction of your will. It is the awareness that analyzes paths before you take them. It is the map where ideas take shape and decisions acquire structure. It is not visible, but it is everywhere. It permeates everything. and because of this, it transforms everything. Air governs the discursive mind, the one that thinks, compares, calculates. But it also lives in the realms of abstract reasoning, in the hypotheses that arise from nowhere, in the thoughts that visit you like a breeze and, if unnoticed, vanish without a trace. It is unstable because its nature is changeable. One moment it blows gently, giving you clarity and vision. The next it turns into an internal storm, raising mental dust, confusion, noise. It is precisely this duality that makes air so crucial in the alchemical path. It can free you or imprison you depending on how you use it. A sharp mind can sever the bonds of illusion, but an undisciplined mind builds prisons of ideas, where everything becomes doubt, everything becomes fear, everything becomes paralyzing thoughtlessness. Air can be a sword that cuts through ignorance, but also a labyrinth in which you get lost in thoughts that spin in circles, never getting anywhere. It is in the air that comparisons, analyses, self-criticism are born. It is here that the voice lives that asks you if you are enough, if you are acting in the right way, if it will work, and if you are not aware of it. That voice begins to dictate your choices. The air, if left uncontrolled, becomes a mental battlefield, but when it is understood, it becomes a channel for conscious creation. Because every reality you live was first imagined, first thought, first existed in the invisible field of the air. And there is more. The air is also the space of the word, of the verb, of the expression. It is through it that you communicate what you think and shape what others think of you. Your communication is one of the most direct ways to materialize ideas, and this has a power that many underestimate. A poorly placed word can set a relationship on fire. A well-placed silence can heal a wound. On the alchemical plane, air is more than intellect. It is vibration in the form of language. It is thought that becomes sound. It is sound that becomes reality. But do not fool yourself into thinking that air acts alone. It is in constant interaction with the fire of will. Sometimes it amplifies it, sometimes it extinguishes it. A peaceful mind can expand the creative fire. A warring mind can extinguish it completely. And it is in this interplay between fire and air that you begin to see how your external reality is a direct result of what is happening behind the scenes in your mind. But there is something even deeper hidden in this play between thought and impulse, a dimension that air alone cannot reach. Because as sharp as thought is, it does not touch the deep waters of feeling. And when the mind tries to understand what only the heart can know, something unexpected begins to emerge. Not all knowledge can be captured by thought. There are truths that cannot be explained, only felt. And it is in that silent place where air can no longer reach that the most mysterious and profound element of alchemy arises: water. It does not shine like fire, it does not blow like the wind, it does not weigh like the earth, it simply is. And being, it transforms, because wherever water touches, something is revealed, something melts, something remembers. Water, the emotional body, and the wisdom of memory. Water does not follow logic. It escapes any fixed form. It flows, it infiltrates, it envelops. And for this very reason, it has the power to access places that the mind could never reach. Water is the vehicle of emotion, of intuitive sensation, of feelings that arise before we even have words to explain them. It is the sacred liquid that lives inside us. It is in the blood that circulates, in the tears that fall, in the sweat that purifies. It is in everything that moves through us without asking permission, but do not be fooled by its sweetness. Water is a silent teacher. It may seem calm on the surface, but inside it holds oceans of memories. Yes, memories. Because water holds memories. And when we talk about water, we also talk about what you have carried with you for a long time. Unresolved traumas, wounds you pretended to forget, emotions you swallowed so as not to appear weak. All of this is there, stored. And even if you don't see it, that water is shaping the way you feel, react, and relate to the world. Many have learned to ignore this realm, to believe that emotion is weakness, that crying is losing control, that feeling too much is overdoing it. But this is the great lie we have been taught to keep the soul asleep, for it is in feeling that the greatest portal of healing lies. Water is not chaos, it is wisdom. It does not drown you, it invites you to immerse yourself. When you allow your inner water to flow, when you feel without censoring yourself, without judging yourself, something begins to transform. The accumulated pain begins to melt. Resentment loses strength. Suffering becomes understanding. You don't have to understand with your mind. You just have to allow your body to feel. Because often it is the unlived emotion that turns into illness. It is the repressed cry that becomes a lump in the throat. It is the unacknowledged fear that becomes paralysis. Water doesn't want to break you down, it wants to purify you. And this movement is sacred. When you allow yourself to feel, you create space for what was hidden to emerge. And with it comes intuition, because water is also the channel to the invisible. It is through it that you perceive what cannot be said, what is not logical, what comes directly from the heart. That visceral feeling that you cannot explain, but you know is true. It is the water that speaks to you. That sudden emotion that assails you when you enter a place or look into someone's eyes. It is the water that remembers, whispers, reveals what is beyond the surface. The most beautiful part is that water doesn't need to force anything. It doesn't push. It simply envelops. And that's exactly why it's so powerful, because it acts where nothing else can. It slips into cracks, digs underground, touches dormant places. It's the womb that nourishes, but also the river that transports. It's the emotion that makes you human, but also the energy that connects you to what is most sacred inside you. For this reason, in the spiritual tradition, water has always been a symbol of baptism, transition, and rebirth, because it is impossible to go through a transformation without passing through the waters, without facing what is kept there, without allowing yourself to feel what needs to be felt. Water does not ask for speed, it asks for presence, it invites. And only those who accept that invitation discover that, after all, emotion is not an obstacle, it is a path. And when emotion finds solid ground, something changes, because water by itself flows, but without direction it can get lost. It needs a container, a boundary, a space in which to soak up and nourish itself. And this is where the earth appears, silent, discreet, but absolutely essential. It is what supports everything. It is the point of contact between the invisible and the concrete, where ideas stop being just ideas, feelings become gestures, and intentions take shape. Earth, the art of manifesting with firmness and presence. The earth is the field of lived reality, not the reality imposed from the outside, but the one you build with every choice, every habit, every step. It is where your dreams take root. It is through the earth that spirituality descends from the sky and sets foot on the ground. Because there is no point in talking about awakening, intuition, and elevated consciousness if you do not know how to deal with the now, the monthly bills, the health of the body, the limits that life places on you. Earth is that reminder, the reminder that everything that is not integrated into daily life becomes an escape. It becomes empty theory, it becomes distraction masquerading as evolution. But don't think of Earth as rigidity, it is structure, yes, but a living structure, fertilized by everything you carry within. Earth holds your oldest habits, your automatic patterns, your conditioned responses. That's why it can trap you or liberate you. Because the same paths you walk every day, how you wake up, eat, work, talk, are like paths imprinted in the soil of your consciousness. And if you don't pay attention to them, you will spend your life repeating the same path, thinking you are moving forward, when in reality you are just walking in circles. That is why true alchemy cannot ignore the earth, because that is where you plant and that is what you reap. If your soil is dry, hard, full of debris, nothing grows. But if it is fertile, clean, and nourished, even the smallest seed can become a forest. And this nourishment begins with presence, with attention, with the simple act of looking at your day more consciously and asking yourself, what in my routine serves my essence? What am I repeating without thinking? What needs to be uprooted for something new to grow? The earth demands commitment, not commitment to what others expect, but to your own creation. Spirituality is not in beautiful words, but in the silence of those who persevere, of those who get up to take care of what matters, even when it is difficult, of those who transform small daily actions into sacred rituals, of those who honor the body as a temple, time as an ally, and matter as an expression of the divine. And when this understanding begins to vibrate in you, something very profound moves, because all four elements are activated. The fire of will ignites, the air of thought clears, the water of emotion purifies, and the earth of action takes root. And it is at this exact point that you realize this is not just symbolic, it is real. You feel a new consciousness being born, not an idea, but a state in which everything inside you begins to align, to organize, to integrate. But what really happens when these four elements work together? Are we just the sum of these parts? Or is there something deeper behind this interaction? This is where depth psychology holds up a mirror to us, and in it we see that this ancient knowledge has always been inside us, waiting to be remembered. Carl Jung, one of the most daring thinkers of the last century, understood this. He understood that these four alchemical elements were not just figures of the Hermetic tradition, but fundamental aspects of the human soul. He called them psychic functions: thinking, feeling, intuition, and sensation. And he said that when one of these functions dominates the others, the psyche loses balance. But when they harmonize, when each finds its place, a new level of perception opens up. Clearer, more complete, more authentic. Jung wasn't talking about empty symbols, he was talking about inner experiences. How you think, feel, sense, and act. How you process and respond to the world. He saw the human being as a living microcosm in which the four elements constantly vibrate, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in conflict. And the more you know yourself, the more you see which of these aspects you favor and which you avoid. Maybe you live too much in the air and neglect the earth. Maybe you feel too much and act too little. Maybe you have will but no clarity. Maybe you are full of ideas but not taking action. Seeing these patterns is the first step toward integration. And integration is much more than balance. It is allowing all your aspects to express themselves at the right time, in the right way. It is giving space for fire to shine, air to flow, water to purify, and earth to support, without any one of them having to cancel out the others. But Jung didn't stop there. He knew that even when all the functions are integrated, there is still something beyond. Something that cannot be explained by parts, a force that gives meaning to the whole, a silent presence that observes everything without getting involved. And this force he called the self, the center of the soul, the point where everything meets. But is this self just another psychological concept? Or is it the mirror of what the alchemists called quintessence? The quintessence, what arises when everything aligns, when you begin to feel that everything inside you is finding its place, when fire, air, water, and earth no longer fight, but listen to each other. Something completely new emerges, a subtle but real presence, an intelligence that does not come from the mind or the heart, but from a quieter space, a center that observes everything, does not interfere, but contains everything. This is where quintessence is born. The fifth element, the ether. Quintessence is not just another force among others. It is the invisible fabric that holds them all together. The ancient alchemists said it was the breath of God, the field that supports all existence, the substance that cannot be touched but touches everything. It is the element that is in everything while remaining invisible in everything. Ether does not move like others because it does not need to move to act. It works through presence, resonance, vibration. When you feel at peace even in chaos. When you know what to do without having to think. When you enter a place and something inside you says yes or no with a clarity that does not come from logic. This is the quintessence expressing itself. It is pure consciousness, the one that does not judge, does not compare, it simply knows. But how do you access this state in the midst of real life? How do you connect with the ether if it has no shape, weight, smell, or color? The answer is not in doing more, it is in doing less, with more presence. Quintessence can only be felt in the space between one action and another, between one thought and the next. When you calm down inside, when you stop reacting, when you start observing, that's when you feel like there's something bigger behind it all, something that guides you, something that connects you, something that brings everything into alignment. And why is this important for manifestation? Because the ether is the field where reality is formed before it becomes matter. The quintessence is the invisible mold of your experience. It's where your vibration meets the resonance of the universe. When you vibrate fear, the field responds with scarcity. When you vibrate presence, the field responds with opportunity. When you vibrate gratitude, the field responds with abundance. You can think what you want, say what you want, visualize what you want, but it is the vibrational frequency of your presence in the ether that determines what you attract. And that frequency is not defined by what you want, but by who you are when no one is looking. By the way you feel, think, act, react, choose, by how you live in the now. This is why so many people try to manifest, affirm, write, declare, but nothing happens, because they try to manipulate reality without changing their vibration. The universe does not respond to your words, it responds to your energy. When the four elements dance in harmony and the ether begins to flow, life stops being a struggle and becomes a song. Coincidences multiply. The right people appear at the perfect time. Every choice is born with a naturalness that almost surprises you. This is not supernatural power. It is simply you, finally in resonance with the rhythm of the universe. Quintessence is that sacred inner space where we stop forcing and start welcoming, where doubts melt away and only a deep trust in the process remains. It is not magic, but the most authentic of alchemies, the one that transforms your presence into a beacon that attracts exactly what you need. To maintain this state, you don't need complicated techniques, but a simple remembering. Breathe, listen, abandon rigidity. Act when you feel the inner call. Stay still when you perceive resistance. True power comes from this loving dialogue with your deepest essence. If these words have touched your heart, leave a like as a seal of your awakening. Write essence in the comments to join the community of those who are remembering their luminous nature. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey home together. May the fire warm you, the air inspire you, the water purify you, and the earth sustain you. And above all, may the ether always whisper to you, "You are already home, old soul. The transformation has already begun, and the best is yet to come. See you soon."